We've all heard the phrase, "don't judge a book by its cover," but for the family that you're about to meet, that phrase is particularly poignant. From the outside, they looked like the perfect family, but on the inside, behind closed doors, they suffered years of abuse until they finally had the courage and the strength to be able to leave. During the last 3 years, they've worked individually and as a family to move from being victims to being survivors. We are honored tonight to have Shelley Kowalski with us, who will share her story before introducing her lovely daughter, Genevieve.
Hi, my name is Shelley Kowalski, and I'm an assistant school teacher and a figure skating coach of 34 years. I have two beautiful children. My daughter Genevieve is 19 years old, and my son Ty is 15 years old. I would like to tell you our story. For 20 years, I have kept a huge secret. I have kept a silence that I have not told anyone. Not my mother, not my father, not my brother, not even my best friend. I have never told anyone how badly abused I was being by my husband, but then he started abusing our children. I was mentally, verbally, physically, and sexually abused. But when I started seeing him doing it to my daughter, that is when I knew something had to be done. I saw the red flags. I saw the bruises on her arms and her legs that matched the ones on my body. I saw her go to school with a black eye, but I was lied to about how it happened. My daughter finally opened up to me when she was 12 years old. She started cutting because she was depressed, but I didn't know why. He would also make fun of my son about his body weight and about his speech because he had a speech impediment. Genevieve was always the strong one. She would take my son Ty into his bedroom and hide him and put headphones over his ears so he couldn't hear what was going on, especially when my husband was screaming at me or hurting me. The final straw was August 8th, 2017. My husband came home drunk. I had a procedure done at the hospital that morning, so I had been resting. When he came home, he started screaming at both my daughter Genevieve, who was 16 at the time, and myself. He started to throw things. He pushed me down. He grabbed my daughter and hit her head against the kitchen counter. He began to choke her until she started to black out. I jumped on his back to try to stop him, but he grabbed me by my hair and dragged me through the kitchen, and then grabbed Genevieve with his other hand and grabbed her hair and dragged her also. I tried to call the police with my cell phone, but he took our phones away from us, and then he took the car keys away from us so we could not leave. He locked me in my room, and then he locked Genevieve in her room with him in there. I don't know what he said or did to her, but later came to find out that he had gotten a hold of his gun, and he was holding it. He was trying to decide who he was going to shoot first. Genevieve, Ty, myself, or himself. Somehow Genevieve calmed him down, and the night ended. For the next 10 days, I saw my daughter become sicker and sicker. She was throwing up all the time, and I knew I needed to take her to the doctor's office. But in the back of my mind, I knew why I was going to the doctors. My daughter became our hero. She saved my son's life and my life. She opened her mouth and the words spilled out as she told her doctor everything that happened as I sat there with tears streaming down my face. Our family doctor looked at me and said, "You know what you need to do." And I said yes. Within 2 days, CPS had contacted me. I took both of the kids there and told them everything, and so did my children. I was then instructed to get a PPO on him and file a police report. Then we were put into hiding for about a month and a half. Genevieve suffered extremely from PTSD from the event. In November, 3 months after we had left, Genevieve had been prescribed a lot of medications for night terrors and for depression. Unfortunately, a combination of all of this had caused her to decide to commit suicide, a mother's worst nightmare. Thankfully, I was able to get her into the hospital in time. Genevieve, after that, had been put in and out of the hospital a number of times. Through this, I also found out that her father had been grooming her. He would show her inappropriate pictures on his phone and say inappropriate things to her about sex. Next, we went to a wonderful place called First Step, and it helped us immensely, and they had recommended Kids Talk for both Genevieve and Ty. Ty worked with Brenda, who was absolutely wonderful with him, and made sure that he understood that he was strong and that he could stick up for himself and he could voice his opinion. Ty is now a sophomore in high school, and he's doing amazing. Genevieve works with Julia, who she has been with for about 3 years now. Julia has become our angel, who has helped us become strong and made Genevieve realize that she has a purpose in this world. From the insecure 16-year-old girl that she was, to now being a 19-year-old woman in college studying criminal justice, she ended up on the dean's list for her freshman year in pre-law. Kids Talk has given my daughter the tools and coping skills to make her stronger and improve her life immensely. Julia and Kids Talk, I can't thank you enough for what you've done for my daughter. I feel like our new story has just begun. I would like to introduce to you the strongest person I know. This is my hero, Genevieve Kowalski.
I love you, Mom. I love you. Thank you. You're my rock. Hi, guys. My name's Genevieve Kowalski, and honestly, I shouldn't be here today. As early as the age of 12, I had begun to self-destruct, and every day I would try to find a fighting chance to not take a handful of pills at the end of the day. I was fighting to be alive. For the first 16 and a half years of my life, I was abused in every category. I've struggled with depression, severe anxiety, PTSD, and eating disorders because of my childhood. I was raised by my father to believe that I was nothing, and yet, every day I was told I needed to be perfect. So I pushed myself to be enough for him. I had to obtain straight A's so I was smart enough. I had to be in at least 5 sports so I was active enough. I had to talk to everyone I could to be popular enough. I had to starve myself so I was skinny enough. I had to watch makeup tutorials every day so I was pretty enough and to cover my bruises. All for him. I never knew who I actually was growing up. I was just a collection of the activities that I participated in so I could be enough. And still, I was never enough. Sure, from the outside, I looked like I had my whole life together, but I was so busy finding things to do that would categorize me as enough for my father that I was never actually able to find myself. I still remember the day that we left. It is my deepest scar. I felt like it was all my fault because I told my doctor about one of the times I was strangled by my abuser, and yet I even left out the worst parts of that particular night. That night he had also loaded a gun in front of me as my mother and brother were locked in another room. That night I had to be enough to influence him to not shoot us, so we wouldn't become just one of those horror stories that you hear about on the news. I thought this was normal, to be beaten, to show up to school every day covering my bruises and scars, to be told that I am nothing every day, to be fighting just to be enough every day. When it came time for me to press charges for 2 felonies and 2 misdemeanors against my father in court at 16, I ended up in the hospital for overdosing because the feeling of not being enough for the people around me was so destructive. So destructive that I had finally decided to take a whole bottle of pills to accomplish the one thing I had tried to accomplish for so many years. That was when my life finally started to change. A little after that, I was introduced to Kids Talk and my therapist, Julia. Julia taught me how to find myself, that I am more than enough, and that everything that has happened to me was a cycle of abuse, and I had stopped the cycle. Kids Talk has helped me in more ways than I can ever put into words or say to you guys right now. Julia knew when I was sinking underwater and when to get me more help. I honestly would not be here today if it was not for the help that they have given me. Now, I'm in my 2nd year at Wayne State University with a full scholarship. I am working towards becoming a lawyer for domestic violence with the primary goal to focus on children who struggle with the abuse I have. I now have confidence in myself to use my story to help others realize that they are enough. I've turned my scars into a beautiful story thanks to Kids Talk and Julia. Most importantly, I have learned that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. We all have our share of pain from this life, but whether or not we continue to suffer is up to us. Kids Talk has helped me learn to turn my bruises and my sufferings into the keys for others' locked doors and others' sufferings. I no longer fight every day to live, I fight to be alive, because finally, I've realized that I am enough. Thank you.